President Trump's trade war has stocks and tariffs yo-yoing in opposite directions. The tariffs go up, stocks go down, and vice versa. This was a vice versa day after the president signaled yesterday that tariffs on China might be lowered. Stock prices surged at the open today. The Dow was up nearly 3% before falling back and closing with a gain of about 1%. Nancy Cordes at the White House tells us a warning about the impact of high tariffs on the economy and American consumers may have led the president to soften his position. Nancy?
Maurice, the president just told me he is hoping to cut the tariffs on Chinese goods sometime in the next few weeks, whether he gets a deal with China or not. It's a big switch for a leader who insisted just a few weeks ago that his tariff policies will never change.
With some small businesses already cutting jobs, President Trump now says the unprecedented tariffs on Chinese goods will soon come down.
How soon do you want to bring the tariffs on Chinese goods down?
That will happen, I'd say, over the next couple of weeks. Wouldn't you say? I think so. Over the next 2-3 weeks. We'll be setting the number.
For China.
And we're going to pick, could be for China, too. Could be for China. We're dealing with almost all of them.
His change in tone comes as U.S. trade with China plummets. Chinese freight traffic to the port of Los Angeles is down more than 30% from last year as American companies cancel their orders to avoid paying an extra 145%. In a closed-door meeting on Monday, the CEOs of Target and Walmart warned Trump that cancellations could lead to empty store shelves in a matter of weeks. And the International Monetary Fund has slashed its annual economic growth forecast for the U.S.
Trade policy uncertainty is literally off the charts.
Looking to reassure investors, Trump signaled today that negotiations with China are already underway.
Are you talking to them actively now?
Actively. Everything's active. Everybody wants to be a part of what we're doing.
But Trump's own Treasury Secretary told reporters the opposite, that no talks are scheduled. And the Chinese said they're waiting for the U.S. to make the first move.
很明确.
If you want to have negotiations, our door is open, a spokesperson said.
White House officials say there are 90 other countries lining up to make deals, but it's the China tariffs that have investors and businesses most worried. In fact, one GOP megadonor, Ken Griffin, said today this trade war has become, quote, nonsensical, and that the White House moves were too fast and too haphazard. Maurice.
Okay, Nancy Cordes at the White House, thank you. Also in Washington tonight is our Margaret Brennan. Margaret, the world is trying to react to Team Trump's messaging on tariffs. What are you learning?
Maurice, the strategy here is unclear. After the market closed today, President Trump said tariffs on China are going to be decided over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Earlier, the Treasury Secretary said that the U.S. wouldn't unilaterally lower tariffs on Beijing and that it could take 2 to 3 years to rebalance trade because the U.S. is basically asking China to rejigger their entire economy. And as Nancy mentioned, there aren't even any talks on the calendar.
Margaret, trade war is just one of the foreign policy fronts they're dealing with. What about the peace talks with Ukraine and Russia?
Well, there is truly a sprint to get some kind of breakthrough before the 100-day mark of the Trump presidency, which hits next week. What we know is that while there is an attempt to get a breakthrough, European officials say the U.S. proposal really reads more like a one-page series of bullet points here than a formal proposal. What we know is there was supposed to be a meeting in London with the Secretary of State. He skipped that meeting, which suggests there is no breakthrough. But then this afternoon, President Trump says he thinks he does have a deal with Vladimir Putin and is sending his envoy to Russia Friday to meet with him. This despite the fact, Maurice, that Russia has not agreed to any kind of concession nor a ceasefire. President Trump is making clear he's frustrated, though, with Ukraine's president, who wants a ceasefire before he makes any concessions. And today, we did hear the president indicate that one particular part, Crimea, is not even up for discussion, which could indicate that the U.S. policy will now essentially allow a country to change the borders of another through force.